Welcome to the Posture Dojo podcast. My name is Sam Miller. I'll be your host on this postural transformation journey. I'm combining methods and techniques from a variety of different fields to give and share alternative ways for you to understand your innate ability to heal and transform your own body, from breath work to movement, to understanding the nervous system and how the spinal cord and the vertebrae all stack up and align. Each moment of the day that you're choosing to breathe and you're choosing to have a relationship with gravity on this planet. And on today, I'm excited because we have Dr. Ernest Kim, who is a chiropractor and acupuncturist, and we're going to delve into some themes that are important for us to understand and also help us visualize what is possible to happen in our bodies and possible to allow to happen. So, Dr. Ernest Kim, please introduce your background. What's your perspective when it comes to standing up on this planet?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm a chiropractor, an acupuncturist, and a transformation coach. So I'm looking at the body from a mind, body, spirit level. And I'm looking at the whole picture because I think posture is more than just where we find ourselves in time and space. It's more than just physicality. I think it has to do with our emotional state, our mental, our physical, and our spiritual state. Our body is so complex. It's simple, but it's also complex in the way it expresses itself. So posture, when you look at somebody's posture, there can be many reasons why their posture is the way it is. If you see somebody who's open and confident, there's definitely most likely an emotional component of why they're standing that way versus someone who is locked in, who is protecting, who is hunched over. Is there a trauma from the past, or are they feeling a certain way? And it can also be temporary. It could just be that day, that time that you find themselves in. So posture can tell a lot about someone, where they're at in time and space currently. It can also tell about their history. So yeah, it's a fascinating subject. It's a fascinating topic, and I'm so happy that you've spent so much time and energy into exploring this.
You know, when I was about 16, I went to the doctor and, they refer you to the orthopedic surgeon. That's usually their first response, right? It's like, okay, you've got some a scoliotic curve going on. You've got some, mine was a 85-degree scoliosis. So kyphosis being the forward head, and then the scoliosis being the lateral side-to-side curve. Pretty severe. So, the doctor then refers you to the specialist, which is the orthopedic surgeon. And then, it's his decision to decide whether surgery is an option or not, or whether bracing should happen, or maybe just wait and see if it progresses or not. And then, you're kind of, a lot of people, and I know I was kind of like, I was lost. Because beyond that, if surgery isn't an option, and in my case it wasn't an option, the system wasn't really set up to kind of help me address these other issues. And the bracing and the surgery are very physically, they're very physical interventions. And there's not a whole bunch of, okay, what might be this? What's going on mentally? What's going on with your breathing? These other systems that are involved in posture. There's really none of that. Do you have any ideas how that happened? Why is the medical system much more physically focused?
I think there's many reasons for that. I think one of the reasons why it's physically focused is they try to be evidence-based. So what are they seeing on an X-ray or an MRI that can determine the causes? And you can't see emotional causes on film. So perhaps that's one of the main reasons why they don't focus on that or even understand that.
What types of situations do you work with in your practice? Like what type of different postural issues do people come to you with?
Yeah. So I don't know if the viewers here know this about scoliosis, but there's two types. There's one that you're born It's a structural scoliosis where you're born and your spine is already curved and deformed at birth. That type of scoliosis most likely requires surgery, most likely requires correction as soon as possible, whereas the vast majority of people have functional scoliosis, where as life happens, the spine becomes curved, either in a C curve or an S curve. And that's through, like we mentioned, a variety of reasons that could happen. I myself have scoliosis. It's mild. But my experience with scoliosis and how it formed for me was a combination of having bad posture, but really coming from my emotional mental state. Growing up in my childhood, I experienced a lot of traumas and a lot of seeing a lot of family dysfunction, not feeling safe, and my body responded in that way. And I was also, I guess you could say, rebelling in school, and there was a time where I was very unmotivated, so I'm sitting in class slumped over all the time, and you do that constantly throughout the day, and your body is going to start to get a curve, because your muscles get tight in one way and tight in the other, and it can form a curve. So that's my experience with scoliosis. I see it quite often in my clinic, in my office, and oftentimes people have no idea. It's when I'm doing my exam and I say, you have a mild curvature, you have a mild scoliosis. The funny thing is, a lot of people go, oh my God, really? What do I do? They kind of freak out. But scoliosis is very common, and the severity is what determines, whether you should be taking more action. I mean, if you have a curvature, you want to fix it, you should be taking action no matter how mild it is. But you don't have to freak out is what I'm trying to say. And most people tend to freak out when I use the word scoliosis.
Because depending on the curvature, it's a compromise to the, I guess, most efficient stack that the spine could be, right? If we have extra curves, we're really kind of requiring more effort from the rest of the body. In its natural form, it is the most efficient.
That, and it can also
right?
cause muscle imbalance, which can cause pain. So there's a lot of people who have scoliosis and they're in constant pain.
Correct. And that was really the most grave part of my experience with it. Yes, there were kind of pains when it was forming in my later teenage years, when it was kind of cementing in. I had chronic aches, those kind of things, but it was bearable, and it wasn't part of the reason why it wasn't bad enough that I needed surgery. It was like, well, if you're getting by and it's a mild pain, then you can live with it. But when I was 33, the compensations of holding that structure started to take its toll, and that's really where things can go wrong. So when my hip flexors had become so chronically inflamed and tensed, that I began shutting down my digestive system and lymphatic system, because your hip flexors are directly next to your digestive system. So I started feeling all of these gut issues, and I thought it was a gut thing. And then my immune system was shutting down because the lymphatic system wasn't functioning. So I got distracted by all these other things when it was in actuality my very kind of physical posture at that point, which was starting to become so dense and tight in that area that my whole system started shutting down. And that's really when I started taking this a lot more seriously, because I was under the impression, or I thought that what I could do was just live with it, and just kind of get by with it. But that's when I started taking it seriously, unfolding myself through kind of a variety of techniques, and actually kind of got taller in the process and more aligned. And I now feel better than ever, and it's actually such a rewarding process that now I'm fully functional. I want to keep going. I'm curious how far I can take this, and how much correction alignment I can bring into my life. Because it's brought it into health, but it's brought it into so many other areas as well.
Yeah, I wonder when you mentioned that you had those tight hip flexors, I wonder where you were at mentally and emotionally at that time too, because I'm willing to bet you were probably under a lot of stress to have that much tension in your body. So I'd probably say it wasn't just purely physical for you at that time.
Yeah, yeah, and whether it was a direct cause or just a pattern that you see in your life where, okay, you've all, like, even from that high school age, just going into that protective phase and not being free in the hips, having a hip injury, as a teenager, and then kind of, how that plays into your expression as a self, right? So yes, posture, I completely agree with you, is about that expression and that, we have a very common type of scoliosis, which is that the curve to the right in the thoracic. So basically a collapse over the over our left side where the heart is. And, whether you're experiencing I would also share as well, that dysfunctional family kind of trauma, or whether it's heartbreak, whether it's depression, whether it's that chronic anxiety being holding so tight in the hips or in other parts of the body. These are all things that I believe need to be part of a proper postural transformation program.
I couldn't agree more. And that's amazing that you mentioned all of that, because it's way more common than people realize, But the good news about all of that, I should mention, is it is correctable. The earlier, the better, obviously. So the younger you are, the more malleable your body can be, and the quicker you can correct it. And the older you get, it becomes a little bit more difficult to correct the curvature, but at the very least, you can prevent it from getting worse. So it doesn't matter where you are at in life in terms of your age, it's not too late to work on your posture.
Yes. And, even if you do have surgery, I did some data. I do want to kind of check out that data better, but it seems like a lot of people who have the fusion surgery still experience progression after that. And I imagine it is because there is this lack of support in these other areas that they need to fix and align, from the breathing, from the emotional aspect as well.
Yeah, and my style of treatment, even though I'm a chiropractor, I focus on breaking up scar tissue, working on the musculature and the soft tissue. So especially people with scoliosis, I'm working on loosening up all the muscles. So even if you have rods, even if you've had surgery, your muscles are still tight, maybe even more tight from the surgery. So you really need to get all of that broken up and stretched out to manage that and to maintain that. So I do have patients with rods that come in, and we work on stretching all that out.
Okay. Yeah. So walk us through, like, when you do have someone who comes to you with scoliosis, what's your method?
Yeah, so typically I will assess the spine and take a look at where the curvature is, whether it's a C curve or an S curve. Now, if you have just a C curve, like what you're mentioning, the common type where you're leaning that way, protecting your heart, you need to open up all of the muscles and do stretching where you are opening that curve. So if you're curved this way, you want to stretch your body the opposite way to try to encourage that curvature to open up, and all of the muscles there, all of these muscles here most likely pulling you down, you want to open up the muscles that way. And then also we do the Y strap. If you don't have any rods, it's a contraption where we put around your neck. It's a traction device where we can pull, and in essence kind of helps open up the spine. But I don't do any of that until I work out all the muscles. And sometimes I don't do any adjustments at all, because like I said, for people with curves and scoliosis, working the muscles and breaking up scar tissue is so important. And if you have rods, I'm not going to adjust you. I can adjust the levels where you don't have a rod. But if you have a rod from your thoracic to lumbar spine, we're not going to do any adjustments, but we're going to stretch you, and we're going to really traction you and loosen you up as much as possible.
Beautiful. Yeah. So we definitely align on that. The first step before trying to build a new posture is letting go of that old one, right? Letting go of the compensations and the tensions that might be holding us back from building a newer, more relaxed and higher posture, which will require strength probably, but the first step is letting that go. And there is a line of thinking that has really captivated me recently. There was Dr. Roth and Porter in 68 who speculated that people or scoliosis may have a potential cause by having, or they noticed that there's a disproportional growth relationship between the spinal cord and the spinal column. So the vertebrae are growing longer than the spinal cord. Now, obviously, the spinal cord is an extension of our brain. It sends all of the information to all of the muscles in our bodies to have their default state, to tense, to relax. And in my case, where I had that kind of hip groin trauma around 13 years old, which I didn't rehabilitate very well. I believe I started, having a lot of chronic tension in that area, potentially limiting the growth of my spinal column and creating that warping effect, because the vertebrae wants to grow normally, but if the spinal cord is limited or tensed or constricted in any way, then you're going to start seeing this warping that happens. And especially if you're not paying attention to it and you're spending all your teenage years on a PC and you're just kind of not breathing into your belly, I found that I compounded a very, very serious structural issue there. And they've done a study, I believe it was a Chinese study in 2008, that really confirmed that they've found that people with scoliosis have shorter spinal cords. And, I've started thinking about what that means and how to integrate that into healing. And the deeper I'm able to relax, like trying less, right? Trying is literally intention, right? So the less we intend, the less we try in some of these positions where we're creating space and creating the opportunity to allow alignment, to allow expansion, to allow the breath to fully circulate in our body. That's when I have these profound clicks of alignment that are happening, right? So I'm very excited by this idea, because I know it's a really key part of the awareness that I think is extremely valuable, especially for people who are, they're in those growth spurt years. If this becomes, common knowledge or a common way of, thing to look out for during these times, I think it would help a lot of people.
Oh man. So first of all, I've never heard of that study, but it makes so much sense. I want to look deeper into it because intuitively it makes so much sense to me. Like I said, for me in my teenage years, I didn't stretch. I wasn't aware of my posture. And if I had spent more time doing that, I wonder if I would have developed scoliosis. Most likely not. And it makes sense to me that could happen if the spinal cord is not growing at the same rate as the vertebrae. Typically, we have our growth spurts, in our teens. So yeah, that's a great time. I mean, really, we should be taught this in elementary, kindergarten, how to breathe properly, how to sit properly, and how to stretch properly, but we're not in most schools.
We're not. And if we're not, and things happen, and we have these different curves and forms, and we kind of have to learn how to integrate the lessons from that and overcome that. And I think I've become grateful for it over time, as I realized that this has now sent me on a path to inspire a lot of other people to take ownership of what's going on in their bodies, because a lot of the times we can be oh, I was a kid, I did, like, my mom said this, or my dad said that, or my doctor said to do this, and we outshift the blame, and then there's nothing I can do, and like mentally, a lot of issues can accumulate if we don't, if we're. I personally, I think the best thing we can do is focus all of our energy on what we can do from here, and as we do kind of have that courage to take ownership and to do the work that is required to heal and grow, that can inspire a lot of people, and that can help a lot of people. And so it's, what happened has happened, but the opportunity for us now to kind of help others on that path is as now it's available right now.
That's a great point, because a lot of people, such as yourself, surgery is not an option, but they're not left with any other options or what to do. So they remain stuck. Oh, I have scoliosis, so I can't exercise. I was told not to. I can't do this. I can't do that. And they're now stuck in this limited belief that they have to live with this forever and just suffer in pain and withdraw from certain activities because their healthcare provider said they can't. And I'm not saying, if you have scoliosis, go do dangerous activities and go do bungee jumping. I'm not saying that. But there are ways to maintain and manage this and live a lifestyle where you can do and where you can be active and do a lot of things like someone who doesn't have scoliosis can. And perhaps you helping to spread this information and this knowledge and to help inspire people is really needed and can help a lot of people who are feeling stuck.
The biggest risk if you have scoliosis or kyphosis is that you do nothing. That is, that's if your structure has been compromised and the power has been taken away from you, or maybe you've given it away. The biggest risk, I believe, is doing nothing. It's letting gravity each day hack away at you, just more and more. And as you get older, as you were saying, you get less malleable. The structures get harder to change. I feel it's like a river that you have going through your body, right? It's you can't take a wildly different curve one day after the next. It takes patience and persistence to start shifting that river, which is your breath, through your body differently. They've scanned the body during breathing, and if you have that scoliosis, you're actually your breath will take the path of least resistance through the body. So it'll go into the convex side, and your concave side, the side that's collapsing, will get more compressed, which means you're having less oxygen go to those areas. And it is possible to target your breathing into those areas and start to reinflate that decompressed part of your structure. And that's a very large part of my process as well. So it seems like you take a much more holistic kind of path to this, and you do this in person in California. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, in the LA area. Yeah, but I just want to add a little bit more to what you just mentioned of the progression of not doing anything, and everything you mentioned also will start to affect you emotionally, because our posture subconsciously affects the way we think and feel, and also the way people perceive us and treat us. If you are talking to somebody upright and open, you're more likely for them to listen to you and engage with you, versus when you're closed up and down, or when you're walking around like this. Psychologically, people are way less likely to respect you, not respect you like as a person, but hear you or listen to you or want to engage with you, depending on our posture. So there's a lot of nonverbal communication that's happening based on how we're presenting ourselves to the world and to ourselves. So I think that's something important to think about too, not just physically what happens to the body, but what happens emotionally. And before you know it, you're less confident and you don't even know why.
That's right, and you can even experience that when you wake up and you go into these victory poses. It actually affects your mood. This is a real effect that the position you hold your body is affecting your mind and your emotions, and it can kind of become addicting in certain ways, in that habitual way, right? We think, well, it's just me. This is how I think. This is how I am. How do you usually open people's minds to thinking other ways?
In my practice, you mean? Yeah, so in my practice, I think there's like a 3-step approach. So the first step is, first of all, diagnosing, educating them on what I found. And then we began our treatment of working on the body physically, breaking up the scar tissue, lengthening. Then I show them what they can do at home, the stretching they can do, the posture they can work towards. And I can show you in a little bit of some of the things I show people, and giving them an example. Say, hey, when I stand like this and talk to you, how does it feel versus when I'm sitting upright and talking to you like this? And they see visually what I'm describing. And then I also sometimes will hold a mirror and say, look how you look right now. Look at your posture. Does it feel like you're trying really hard to stand upright? They say, no. How does it look? It looks great. Yes. And now, go the way you were. And I kind of show them. And when they see it visually, they can see, oh, wow, I look like a different person. My energy is different. And then the last phase is the strengthening. So I think too much in the traditional Western medical field, they go straight from primary care to physical therapy before they do all these other steps. And sometimes that can be detrimental, because if you go straight to strengthening, it can cause more damage. So there is a time and place to go straight into physical therapy. I think it's a little bit later on, where you can then start to strengthen some of these muscles here to hold your neck up, strengthen your upper back. But at first, I think it's important to break up the scar tissue, start training the mind and the body to realize the self-awareness is so key, because like you said, it becomes a habit of being in a certain posture and position where that becomes normal for you. But when you start to retrain the mind to, wait, no, that's not normal. This is normal. And when you go out of normal, your brain starts to tell you, hey, that something's off. So retraining the mind, I think, is so important too. And then we can start to strengthen and reinforce that.
All right. So let me ask for you to have a go at giving some advice to someone who maybe has I'd say one of the most common ones these days is the forward neck posture, especially with our kind of, our eyes pulling our head down, creating more weight on the head, on our structure, causing tension in the back, which just locks us into this forward head. So, on TikTok, on Instagram, it's all, here's 3 exercises to fix your forward neck posture. And, obviously, breaking down these tensions that are there, the mindset issues, the lifestyle habits, there's so much more to it. So would you like to have a crack at making, a 1-minute TikTok for how to actually fix your forward head posture?
Before I do that, there's many different ways, and find one that works for you. So I'm not going to say this is the only way, or the other ways don't work. It's what resonates with you. And these are little things you can start doing at home. Even though I said there's a 3-step process, in essence, you can do them all at the same time, as long as you're not overdoing one over the other. Okay, so I'm going to show you 2 things. I'm going to show you 2 things that I show people to do that's relatively easy. Obviously, you can use, there's more complicated ways to do this, more advanced ways to do this, but I'm just showing you something very simple that most people can do at home. Okay, so I'm going to show you 2 things. All right, ready?
Okay, now is this for forward neck or scoliosis?
I'm going to explain it. This is a forward head posture. Yeah, this is for that.
Okay.
And then I'm going to show you, one that's kind of more of a general full body posture exercise, I guess you could say, or Yeah. So first I'm going to explain into the mic and then I'm going to demonstrate. Okay. So for this one, the key thing is getting 2 fingers, putting on your chin and pushing it in like a drawer, not pushing down, but pushing in as if it's a drawer like this. Okay. That's step 1. Step 2 is making a W with your arms, but making sure that your shoulders are down and back, and then you're going to squeeze your back like someone has a pencil in the middle of your back. Okay, so I'm going to repeat. Step 1, get 2 fingers, push on your chin, push in like a drawer, make a W, shoulders in, shoulders back, squeeze your back like you have a pencil for 30 seconds. Okay, and it looks like this. And you're going to hold and breathe for about 30 seconds and try to relax as you're doing it. Even though you're contracting, you're also you're not like doing this, okay? You're trying to stay relaxed and breathe. And once about 30 seconds pass, you're going to slowly relax and slowly put your arm down so that you're not going from here to there, okay? You're going from here and then slowly like this. And the idea is that your ear is in alignment with the top of your shoulder and the top of your hip. So that's one. Let me show you another one. The other one that I want to show you is...
Hold on. And so what is this? And this is really activating some of the muscles that should be a bit more active in these positions, right?
Yes, let me explain. The reason why we're doing this is 2 things are happening. Like you mentioned, we're on the phone all the time. So what that does is it weakens the muscles in our neck and it weakens the muscles in our upper back. So what this thing does is it fires your upper back muscles. So it's getting those muscles to actually turn on, because a lot of times they've been turned off from doing this so much. So we're turning on the muscles here so they fire, and we're also sort of strengthening those muscles there. And this also strengthens the muscles here so we can hold our head upright and not let it droop down like that. So in essence, that's what we're doing with that.
Beautiful.
Good?
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to show you the second one. The second one is very simple. It's one of my favorite things to show because it's so simple that people are like, wait, no way. What you're going to do is you're going to stand behind, you're going to find a wall, make sure it's a flat wall. You're going to put the back of your head, the back of your butt, and the back of your 2 feet. Make sure they touch against the wall. And once they touch, you're going to take 1 step forward. That is how you should be standing ideally. Okay? So once again, you're going to find a wall, put the back of your head, the back of your butt, and the back of your feet flat up against the wall. Don't lift your head. Make sure your head doesn't go back. You're going to be looking straight forward, and then you're going to take 1 step forward with each feet and try to stay in that position, okay? What that does is it's a natural way to kind of just open up everything. It puts your body in alignment. And it's a really easy thing to do and a quick thing to do. And you can do it every time you remember. Just do that, step forward, and see how you feel. Like, am I standing like that? No, I was hunched over. Okay, let me go do that again. And keep doing that until that becomes natural when you start standing. It's a good way to sort of check in with yourself. How's my posture? Let me check.
Until it becomes natural, right? Until we have these new neuromuscular pathways. It's just the default way of holding us. I've recently kind of learned a little technique to kind of help with that construction of that new pathway, right? So when we have that tense position or that tension, having a slow 7-second exhale during that tension, and bringing our awareness to what that, the emotional state of that as well, and whether that is, that more intense emotion of, but also just maintaining that slow, can be a nasal exhale for 7 to 8 seconds, really helps establish that new pathway. And then upon that relaxation, as you were saying, holding it, feeling the positive experience and rewarding the body for holding that position as well. Can just be a little extra kind of mental integration into that, right?
I'm going to add that in now.
Yeah, because the goal is to create that new pathway and make a new normal, essentially. So to kind of reinforce that pathway mentally helps a lot, because it just integrates the mind into the body, which is what it's all about.
It does make you feel good, when you're sitting upright and you're open. It makes you feel good versus when you're not. So reinforcing that emotion, I think, is very important.
And when we have these chronic tensions, from all these various nerves that come out of the spinal cord, if we're, if they're chronically tense, the way, stretching is, it can open up some movement, but by experiencing full tension and experiencing relaxation is really how we can kind of reestablish or bring back kind of that dynamic nature of the nerves, as opposed to that chronically tense nature. The body is a wonderful thing, right? It's just this ongoing exploration. I appreciate you kind of sharing your perspective and your techniques. All right, Dr. Ernest Kim, thank you very much for coming on and sharing your wisdom. I'm glad to connect with someone else on a healing path and a healer path. So I appreciate the work you're doing and the conversation we've had. All right, all the links are in the show descriptions. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one.